it's one of those, it's not a big event, it's a weekday, etc. So I had a blast. It was, I talked to people about, crits and what to do, and practicing and training, and watched videos. I haven't been practicing a lot of corners, but anyway, I went out there and it was a ton of fun. It was great experience. I'll be doing more and more of that. Came in third, which was great. For me, being able to be at that front group and cover the attacks was fantastic. So definitely going back for more. So that was the highlight of my birthday week, let's say.
Oh, that's awesome. I just picture Taya in the group and be like, all right, everybody, this next one, we're really going to go for it. Okay. So just really dig down deep for this last lap. We got 5 laps to go, 5 laps to go. All right.
No, she wasn't. She was sitting there going, you guys ain't got crap on VO2 555.
Like, this is it. This is it. All this training and this is it. Come on, paddle, everybody. All right. Well, let's jump into the lab this week. We're going to start with Ian. He's going to give us a little update on the strength and multi-sport side of the lab this week.
Thanks, Jason. So strength side, we've kind of dialed it back a little bit, and we're letting you rely on what you can fit in those 10 to 15 minute core sessions as we really finish out hammering the rest of the body in this last 2-week performance lab. Again, I do encourage you, just do that 10 to 15 minute core stuff that we have on the Endurance Lab website, or anything you want to do, but you really need to focus on that. And I'll cover a little bit more why it's important later when we hit race recap later in Hot Topics. But what we hit on multi-sport side on the running, we had our big key workout of the week was the 80 minutes of 5-minute hard intervals. So it's 5 minutes at roughly threshold pace. So we're looking 10K pace, and then backing it off and repeating that over and over and over, basically for 80 minutes. It's a lot of fun. And then the swim key workout, we had our 2, 4, 8 pyramid. So it was a 200, 400, 800, and then back down, progressively getting faster on the way back down. So it's holding the 2, 4, and 8 pace, and then dropping you're increasing your speed as you went back down. So it's another one that's a lot of fun. It definitely you definitely end that one fairly worn out. Next week we have our last week of the lab, and that's where we're really going to see how we've done. It's 8 by 800 repeats. Yeah, they're fun. I did it the other day, a couple weeks. I did it last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago. And I was really happy with how I did. And I think a lot of people are going to see that some of their speed, but more important, their speed endurance has really come around. And granted, 800 is more of a short course race, but for those of us who are not Olympic athletes, a half mile is still a big push, because we're looking at 220 and up. So it's definitely not just a straight up sprint for us humans. And then on the swim, the other big one is the 3 by 1K. And this is one that if you can get through it and continue to drop your pace on each 1K, you're straight for a 70.3. You have no worries. Unless, of course, you start at a very pedantic pace, stopping at the wall every time you hit a wall. But as long as you do the 1K straight and you decrease your times through them, you're pretty much golden to get through your 70.3.
Awesome. That is definitely looking like a pretty tough week coming up. So excited to hear how all the riders and runners out there are going to be getting through that week and kind of checking those out. All right, we'll send this over to Taya for the skills that we covered this week. I've been getting a lot of really anonymous messages here towards the end of the week as we do the long grinds, but let's hear what else we had to do this week.
We worked on a lot of skills this week. We worked on climbing, we worked on VO2, we worked on everything mixed in with the fast group ride, which is really a mixed bag or a kitchen sink, if you will. And we finished up, or are finishing it up, with tempo blocks. So I'll start with the VO2. The VO2 this week, we have longer intervals at a little bit shorter intensity compared to some of the other ones that we have with a lot of high intensity, very short intervals and repetition. So the 335 is your classic VO2, or one of your classics VO2 workouts to improve the time that you're able to spend at threshold. Then we had the long grinds, which I led in the Zwift workout module. And as soon as I logged in and people logged into the workout in the pen in Zwift, I got messages saying, well, there's no rest in between. Where's the rest?
Where's the rest?
And I said, well, the rest is the green tempo. You're going to rest at tempo. So this was fantastic workout in terms of going hard. It's really simulating a long climb. And it is also designed to show you zones that you can use and should use, zones, power, cadence, and body position throughout that long climb. It's a common mistake that riders make to think that they can just sit there or should sit there and use the same power constantly throughout the climb. So it is a hard workout, yes, but it is one that is designed, like I said, to give you all those tools. The fast group ride. Go ahead. Oh, Ian, did you do that?
I loved it.
Today?
I just did it now. I thought I was going to hate it, and I loved it.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So the fast group ride was a mix of sprinting, VO2, threshold, tempo, endurance, which is what you would find on a very, very fast group ride or even sometimes a race. So we had a comment from Michelle that she really liked this one. And there should be a voting system. Maybe we'll go to a voting system for the workouts that people like. But, keep in mind, though, as any doctor will tell you, a coach will also tell you that you can't only do the workouts that you like, right? Chances are the ones that you don't like so much are the ones that go right into your weak spot. And therefore, you should be working on those as well. I think that's it. Yeah, for the skills for this week.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely been a great week. Headed into the last week, I think definitely riders are getting a feel for how much work they need to do and how important it is to work in skills every week. Like we talk about here on the Endurance Lab, that we do work in layers and we want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our time. And that's what these workouts are doing. Okay, let's jump over to hot topics in the lab. I am actually going to go ahead and jump in, go first here. We're going to bring our little section in the feed zone. So a topic came up in the forum about nutrition during a gravel event. So I found a nice little quick, kind of quick and dirty 5 things that we can kind of chat about, talk about, get some conversation going between the coaches as well as you guys in the forums, just about the different things that you should do, or just some myths that may come across of the things that you should do while fueling for a gravel event. This article comes from Source Endurance. It's called The Science of Results. I will post a link to the article that we're kind of going over for the 5 nutrition myths for long gravel grinders. We'll go with the first nutrition myth here, that losing weight before an event or before your event will make you faster and climb better. Although losing weight before an event can definitely a lot of times negatively affect your ability to store what's called muscle glycogen, or the energy you have in your muscles, which is your primary source during these events. Like a gravel grinder, it's important to keep a balance between these two, and also to keep these topped up and making sure you have the energy you need to finish these long events. A lot of times, or traditionally, these gravel grinders are longer events, but more and more, since they've been getting more popular, they are actually all different types of levels, anywhere from, 50, 60, about the 100K round, all the way up to the crazy amounts, up to 200, 300 miles, all the way to crazy stuff that some of our friends do, like Dirty Kansas, where it's just hours and hours and hours all throughout the day. So just making sure that you have this ability or this balance between the muscle glycogen and getting it topped out for these rides. So making sure leading up to these rides that you're eating within 30 minutes of even, finishing, during, and we'll talk a little bit about that more in the other myths here. Number 2.
And Jason,
yeah,
real quick
sure.
on that one.
Jump in.
On that one. It's someone who, I was a wrestler, a boxer, and doing the triathlon stuff, depending on the course. Weight's always been something I've always monitored. Losing weight, if you're not at the pointy edge of the spear on this one, if you're not at the front of the race, don't worry about this. And look, obviously you don't want to go in as a giant person on a small bike, 150 pounds overweight, because that just means your fitness levels. But the important part is being fit. When you lose weight, you become more susceptible to illness, become more susceptible to injury. Trust me, your family and friends will not like you when you're losing weight. So you need to be very, very diligent in your approach to this, and you have to take a look at it and go, am I going for a top 10%? Overall, am I going for the age group podium? If the answer is no, I'm going out here, I'm gonna have fun, then take a practical look at it. Say, I need to lose a little bit of weight, maybe because it's a lot of climbing, but I don't need to go, I don't need to go Michael Rasmussen and go down to, almost anorexia. So this is real key. And I think too many cyclists get too wrapped up on this.
Another myth within that is the part of weight, especially if you just came out of your winter training and you're staring at numbers on your screen, and you're really obsessing over that part of weight and part of weight and part of weight.
I don't know what you're talking about.
People could have, it's not enough to have a good part of weight, or is not the holy grail to have good part of weight, because of course, if you have low part of weight, you're still working on your fitness. That's fine. But how do you use all of that? So the long grinds, that's a great example of a workout. Yeah, you might have a great part of weight, but you know what? Somebody who might have a little bit lower part of weight, but they're able to do all of these other things on the bike that will make them faster, because they're able to accelerate with cadence, because they're able to change body positions, and that will put them at an advantage. Guess what? They're going to get to the top of the climb faster than the other rider who perhaps have lower part of weight, but doesn't train the same way.
And the other part of that too is you're just talking that power to weight, and that weight part of it matters too. When you're looking at, you gravel people tend to do things like when it's below 50 or 60 degrees out and below 70.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so when you're experiencing Arctic chills like that, like Arctic fronts of 60 degrees,
60 degrees.
The very skinny riders struggle in that a lot more. So that's something to consider as well.
Absolutely. I had one more tip I couldn't remember. Oh, yeah. So just making sure that you have a good balance between this, and really above it all, that you have the fitness to reach your goal, to reach your honest goal. All of us have secret goals for a lot of these things, but making sure that you reach a good balance between those. Jumping over to nutrition myth number 2, that a big pasta dinner or just dinner, carbohydrate-filled dinner the night before will fuel your gravel grinder for the next morning. I think this has some good merit, and the reason why is that it takes time for your body to digest these foods. If you were going to do a short race, I think that could make sense, but really in the long or the big scheme of things, you want to kind of spread these out. You're looking 3 or 4 days before your event, because you're looking at an event that's looking 8+ hours. For the longer versions of these, you want to start consuming not just carbohydrate, but protein and fats, just getting a larger amount of food in. But the carbohydrates amounts, that's what's important for the 3-4 days, not just all the night before. So spreading that out is super important. And I'm sure Ian has some experience with this, for his longer run races. It's not just that night before. It's like probably that whole week, Ian, right? For trying to get
it is. It is the whole week where I'm really concentrating on what I'm putting in my body, and I'm making sure I'm hydrating quite a bit. I'm starting my electrolyte boosting a little bit earlier. But I will tell you what I found works for me, and it's personal, is I eat pizza the night before. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, it's carbs, protein, because I put chicken on it, and fats from the cheese. And the tomato sauce has a lot of good properties to it as well. In fact, more than just eating regular tomatoes. And so that's got a lot of good benefit. Plus, I can just eat pizza fast, so I can get it down before my system tells me I'm full. And so sometimes I boost up my calories a little bit. So the next day, I maybe don't have to eat as much in the morning. I'll still have a breakfast, but I've got enough calories stored up in my system that I'm good throughout the race, and I don't really start having to chow down until later in the bike.
Nice. That's a really good tip. All right. Go ahead,
Tia. There on the one thing to keep in mind as a female athlete, there's a bit of a difference. So studies have shown that women do not store carbs the same way as men do.
Yes, that's
we
right.
don't have the same capacity to be storing all of this stuff. So keep in mind that, yes, you want to be prepared. Yes, you want to be eating carbs days before, so you get your body, but it doesn't have to be as much as you might see in books and articles that you see recommendation for carb loading before an event. It might be less. And therefore, it is that much more important that you eat more on the bike. So you as a female athlete need to be eating more often on the bike than men would. So if you're racing, and this is something that I learned the hard way, riding with my husband, for example, we would go on long rides, 4 or 5 hours, and he would eat every hour or so. Well, that doesn't work for me. I need to be eating more often. So I found that my sweet spot is 30 minutes. I'm
Yeah.
getting something in every 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely a good kind of a good block to kind of go for, and we're actually going to cover that here in number 4. Let's jump in here before number 3. Ian did mention about it here about electrolytes. If I need more electrolytes, I should just double the drink mix per bottle. And if you've listened to any of my In the Feed Zone solo outside of the Coach's Corner, you'll know that a lot of brands kind of have a ratio per bottle that is very important for absorption into your body. So it is important that you kind of keep that balance. So you actually need to make sure that you balance this out from into the bottles and that it will get into your body. So it takes time. So it's going to be over time and over the course of days if you're going to want to get more electrolytes in, because all it's going to do is going to end up you in the porta potty the day of, right before the race, because your body is just trying to dump everything because it doesn't understand how much we're putting into it.
Or you're standing in the water looking at the buoys in a very thoughtful manner.
I'm guilty of that. I've done it. I've overloaded on electrolytes and it's not pretty. Don't do it.
All right. Nutrition myth number 4 that we kind of hinted at, that you should mindfully eat and start eating when you get hungry. I think for training races, I think for going out for spins and things like that, and kind of not in this situation, it could be useful, but because of the difficulty and the terrain of these type of events, it's important that you get food in when you can and as much as you can and as early as you can because of how long these events are. A lot of times we talk about anywhere from 60-minute workouts to 90-minute workouts, really topping out around 2 hours plus, but we're talking about double, triple, quadruple that. We're needing to make sure we get food in right from the beginning. So no matter what your glycogen stores are from the beginning, they are going to be reduced no matter what after 4 hours of your body, because it's going to be defending itself or trying to keep itself and just keep your brain functioning. So it's important that you're you're getting the food in right from the beginning. So again, like Taya was mentioning, setting a timer of sorts for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is, just a mental click in your head so that it's on your computer would be a good way to help you stay on top of it. And number 5, that I should eat carbs, 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 and only carbs during the event. And again, this goes into a conversation of shorter events, but as events lengthen out, you really got to diversify the different things that you're putting in because you're on the bike for so long. And one of the things that you can add in or you should consider is that considering some protein during the time, whether it being in a drink mix or some of the food, if you're able to take in actual food, can go a long way to prevent muscles breakdown after that 3rd, that 4th hour time and kind of trying to get yourself caught up or at least helping yourself along the way to delay fatigue over this long event. Really, as far as carbohydrates only, you're looking at when you're doing more anaerobic racing, shorter racing, kind of just going on for a shorter period of time, but you really need to consider mixing that up. So then the question comes up, what should you actually eat during this event? Should you have solid foods or liquid foods? So if you're making your own bottles, you really can shoot for a certain amount of food to get in. But remember, it is important that there's a balance that your body can absorb. So you can need to do this in training. You need to make sure that your body can handle, let's say, anywhere on the top end of the 60 or 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, and how you're going to get that in, whether it's a combination of liquids and solids, or if you're going to get it all in the bottle, because you need to wear a camel pack, you need to have bottles on hand, and you need to get a lot of the calories in because everything's just sloshing around and you can't get solid food out of your pockets. So just remember to look at the recommended drink to water ratios on our drinks for hydration and for fueling, and make sure you test it. You don't want to show up on the day of the race and end up with gut distress, just your stomach just completely bloated because it's trying to digest food. And so if you're opting for something like a Camelback and trying to get electrolytes at the station, that's okay. But just make sure that you kind of mix these liquids, and if you can, get some real food in just to get these overall calories in. I'm not too sure if I've heard stories of all liquids. Taya could kind of help me out with that to be able to get through this. I think it's always been a mix, but I think a lot of riders are moving towards more carbohydrates in liquids, but I still feel that there's still a mix between solid and liquids.
I think it depends on again, like you said, Jason, it depends on how long. So, and it depends on the event. So I've done a gravel race and that lasted 3.5 hours, and it
Mhm.
was all liquid nutrition for me.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
feel like if it's longer, then it starts to be really hard to do all of it only on liquids.
Yeah, totally. So, and then on the side of solid foods, because a lot of the dense sugars we're getting from our drink mix in our foods, you want to take a look at foods that might be really low stress. It may be like a peanut butter jelly sandwich, or actual like foods that you could fill your mouth. And also, the thing about it is everything could be so sweet that you might want to think of things that can switch it up and maybe get some savory foods in there.
Mhm.
That could be nice to kind of mix things up, especially hour after hour having the same sort of taste. Can be really fatiguing
Yeah.
for your taste buds as well.
And something that it's
And
not too dry either, because and it's
yeah.
hard to chew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have those packets already open in your pocket.
So
That's key. Go ahead.
there's one other thing to consider too is I tried to do an Ironman on all liquids for the most part one time using Perpetuum from Hammer and a couple of products like that. And you know, it's got a lot of good calories in. There's some fat, there's some protein, there's some carbs, and
Yeah.
it's really good, except for it doesn't do so well in the heat. It tasted like vomit in a bottle.
Oh, yeah.
So it was super tasty, you know, along the bike. So I ended up just, I mean, I tried, fortunately, I did the right thing and I tested it out. I trained with it, and I just couldn't take it. And I had to go, you know, about a month before the race, switch up and find something else and do, you know, bars and gels and things like that, because it was great for the first hour, but you know, I would pack it up like pancake batter, and it would be at my 3 hour or 4 hour bottle for
Yeah.
the bike. And man, by about 90 minutes to 2 hours, I was like, this is just horrible.
Yeah.
I couldn't deal. I couldn't deal. So I had to get rid of it. So take those things into consideration. You might like the taste of something cold, but see how it tastes warm, because you may get that way.
Mhm.
Exactly. I've heard more and more stories of kind of these science-built, slow digesting carbohydrates, let's say, or products like Perpetuum. And then I've heard stories of riders, both cyclists and triathletes, getting this bottle in their special needs bag. And that special needs bag, Ian, could be, you know, miles in and not at the transition point, right? And it could just be sitting there all day in the sun,
Yeah.
and getting it, and it just is pretty bad. So it could be good at the house, like when you make it at home and it's nice and cool and it comes out of the fridge. But yeah, again, test that out. So just a couple of the things to help delay fatigue. There are some small things that you can think about that you can add in as you go. One is thinking about nitrates. Things like beet juice have a lot of benefits and can help with getting more glucose into the body. Also, magnesium-rich foods can also help delay fatigue. So a lot of these things we can also kind of add in because there's so much time. So you're looking at green leafy vegetables on this article. They were kind of reaching towards, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone having a green smoothie in the middle of an 8-hour gravel grinder. But I think just keeping that in mind, that there are some things that we can do to delay fatigue, is super important. So I'll go ahead and post that link of the article that we covered here. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and post up, and we'll kind of address those through the different sources that we have, and just really just to spark conversation of not just gravel grinders, but just workouts or rides that pass that threshold of 4 hours, 8 hours, kind of in that zone. Just let us know what you think on that. So
I think it would be great to share what are some of the foods that you like to bring on board. Um,
absolutely.
so after a while, get tired of the same stuff that you eat. It's nice to try something else. And so, Jason and Ian, what are your favorite pocket foods?
So
Well,
one of my,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Jason. No,
Okay, I'll go.
you
It's
lead.
probably the same. I have a feeling it's almost the same thing. So what I like to make a lot of my own food. And so I think the longest I've gone is probably 3.5, 4 hours for my 100K races that I do. So haven't gone past the 4 hour mark, but I do like to mix sweet and savory. So I do make rice cakes, and I like those on my rides just because I know what I'm going to be putting in. A lot of times there'll be hydration on the course or food on the course. And I just use that kind of a la carte if there's actual stops, if it's a long like Fondo type ride. But if it's 100K straight, I usually carry everything in the pocket, and I don't stop for hydration, and I don't stop for food. So everything is in the pocket, and it's got to be stuff that I know that's going to work. So a mix between savory stuff that's got like eggs and bacon and rice is a really good go-to with a little bit of like coconut aminos. For my sweet stuff, for my savory stuff, my sweet stuff, I love like almond butter and honey and a good bit of salt. That's kind of my two go-tos that are super neutral for me. What about you, Ian?
So my favorite that I've gotten into recently are the portables, the blueberry chocolate rice portables. Those work really well for me. I can eat those and just mash them through my mouth. But when I'm doing the 4, 5, 6 hour rides, I've gone through different stages in my life. I like to think of it as I've matured. I had to move away from things because my body just rejects them after a while. But I found ice cream in the pocket doesn't work. I like it, but it just doesn't work really well. So I've strayed away from that. But I carry, honestly, those portables. I'll usually carry a couple gels because at the end of it, if I start just fatiguing and I just need that sugar rush, I throw a gel in, and generally I'm pumped back up and I'm good to go. I used to carry a can of Red Bull. I got away from that because it got warm up against my body, but it did definitely work. Gave you some energy. So I'm a veritable buffet as I go down the road a lot of times, and I generally don't eat off the course unless it's a banana or something like that. I generally stay away from whatever they're doing because a lot of times the specialty products provided are from a sponsor that I may not, and it may not be something I've tested or may not use or may not like. And especially on the run, if they have Gatorade out there, it better be lemon, lime, or orange, or I'm not touching it. Because I just won't. My stomach will just reject it. And if it's Powerade, I'm not going near it. I can't do Powerade for whatever reason.
Nice.
Not when I'm racing. But yeah, other than that, I kind of have these weird things. Unless I'm dying for certain things in a race, I'm just really leery about reaching into the pretzels, and unless they have them separated in cups.
Right. So to our athletes here, you can call or ahead of time the race organizers and find out what they're going to have at the aid stations.
Yeah, definitely. And usually they're laid out pretty well for what you want. It just, I highly recommend it. You find out what's going to be out there, try it, or just like you said, Jason, you carry for everything you can. And but at the end of the day, if you're bonking on a race, just put food in your mouth.
Yeah. Definitely. I guess one thing to add really quick on the gel side of things, I definitely do carry those as kind of my last bits are getting closer to that last hour or that last 45 minutes. And typically for these longer rides is where I start putting caffeine in. If the ride is 3+, 4+ hours, I actually don't put as much caffeine early on in the race, and I actually put it on later towards the last hour or as I get kind of intervaled in. And that really definitely layers in very nicely.
And that's what you'll hear from other pros. That's what they do too.
Yeah.
Usually the last hour and a half.
Yeah. And so you could really get a boost kind of in that last amount and get a good benefit from that. All right, let's slide on over to skills. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here with Taya and a couple of other things that came up in the forum about a couple maybe bike fit issues or kind of knee issues. So let's hear about that.
So on the skills for this week, we had so many wonderful posts from our athletes. A lot of them are outdoors doing events and putting their legs to work outside and seeing how that's going. Many personal bests outdoors. We had Dean and Michelle who did time trials, and they were able to shave off their time trials compared to the last year, for example. And we're looking at, Dean with 25 seconds on the same course, but much windier, and he had, higher power this year. Michelle was able to shave off, I think it was 25 or 20 minutes. It was a long time. Yes.
That's
and
impressive.
Then we have the other Michelle across the pond who went back home and took her bike with her and tackled a very steep hill that she had done in years past. And she was always afraid of doing it because it goes up to 19% grade.
Wow.
And she was able to tame the beast, as she says, and this year, and she's really happy about that. And Mike was commenting how even in his zone 2 rides, he's noticing that his heart rate is lower by over 10 beats per minute in those, showing an improvement in fitness there. So great job, everyone. The other topic that comes up then, of course, is everybody is doing work outside, is tapering for events. And we are always guiding you through how to taper for your events. And in the forum, we have a lot of those posts and we're happy to take those on. But as general rules, you have the types of events, and they can be an A event, that's your main event of the season, a B event, kind of in the middle, and the C event is sort of like treated as a training event. So of course, the tapering for those is going to vary between the type of event, depending also on the level of fitness of the rider, whether the rider is older, younger, more fit, less fit, or prone to injury. This is when we take into account how long you should rest. But one thing is key. You need to keep some intensity the week before the event. That's key to maintaining your fitness at a maximum race level without fatiguing. So it's a balance between keeping the intensity and resting enough. There should be typically the week before 2 to 3 days of very easy riding between those hard / race-like workouts. And you should feel your fatigue really fading away. You start to feel much better. You start to feel that, you're ready to go. You're almost worried, right? Some of the athletes even get worried. It's like, wait, am I doing enough work here? Am I going to lose my legs and I'm not going to be ready for the event? Well, all the training at that point is done, really. And the week before is the week to get you to form, meaning get you ready for the intensity of the event. So don't worry. That's really part of the of what you should be doing. The workouts with the intensity are typically shorter in that week, etc. Now, if you have C events, again, those are considered training events. So you just train through them. If you have, let's say, like my crit on Tuesday, I just swap that for a workout, and I keep training as usual. If it's a B event, maybe you take a little bit more rest, maybe 2 days off, or you take, your workload that week by, I don't know, 25%. The coaches might have a view here. No science behind that. It's really a bit of common sense. And looking at numbers, if you work with a premium version of Training Peaks or Today's Plan, etc. And then, of course, A events is the big taper that I mentioned.
Yeah. So the way I like to treat my B events are that I don't do a taper except for race week. So race week, I bring it down like a normal race week, like I would for an A event. But on an A event, I may have a 1 week or even 2 week taper, depending how long the event I'm training for is. For like an iron distance event, I'm going to have about a 10-day taper plus race week. For a 70.3, it's a 1 week taper with the race week. So what I'll do for a B event is that nice taper race prep week. The other thing though, Taya, here that I think is really important is people need to treat C and B events as what they are. If you're an A event, you bury yourself. You go as deep as you can, as hard as you can to win the race or die trying. You don't do that on a C race. And on a B, you can dig, but you don't bury. And that's important. And that's why I don't race a lot, because I am pretty much not capable of not going for it.
That's a good point.
And that doesn't mean you don't try. It doesn't mean you don't try. I mean, if you're in a C event, you're up at the front, you go for the win. But I mean, you don't turn yourself inside out, because the next day you got to train.
Sure. And the type of the event too. So if it's a long event, the taper is also needs to take that into account. But if it's a crit event and it's an A event, those are typically short. So you don't need 10 days to taper for that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And the other thing too is when you're planning these, don't plan a C event that's twice as long as your A event. I mean, you can if you're using it just as a training day, but you have to treat it like that. And like I said, I am not mentally capable of treating any race like a training day. A race is a race for me.
Right. So I think with that, as far as the different events, it's important to kind of keep that into perspective and making sure that you're being true to yourself, and that is a part of a little bit of how we can help you as well, talking and stratifying these and just planning your season accordingly. And these don't necessarily need to be races. I have athletes that just race for, let's say, the group ride or a fondo, or just wanting to do better at this, this big one, this big ride that everybody shows up at, for example. And you could stratify those as A, B, and C events and that sort of thing. It doesn't need to be these, strap on a number, putting shoulder to shoulder, that sort of thing. It could just be group rides that you're
or like Sarah, she's doing a condo that she's treating as an A event because, hey, she's done it before, and at one time she won the queen of the event because she was faster, so she wants to go for that. Yeah, exactly.
Or it could just be being able to drop your significant other.
That's right.
There you go.
Or all of those people who used to drop you.
Right.
That's true. Oh, all right. There was a couple other points there about a couple pain issues in the forum there, Taya, as well. Did we hit those? Okay.
Yes. So briefly on knee pain, I will mention a couple of things, but I will post a table from one of the books here that I have that's very useful, explaining what are the possible causes of knee pain, and depending on where the pain is located. Now, again, we're not doctors, right? We're not here telling you exactly.
Well, not.
But we can tell you what we've seen from experience, and of course, please don't take our advice as medical advice.
Exactly.
But typically, front of the knee or the anterior part of the knee, possible causes or typical causes of that is the seat is too low or the seat is too forward. Or you might even be just climbing too much on big gears and not enough variation on your RPMs. It could even be that the cranks are too long. Now, if the pain is on the inside of the knee, called the medial part of the knee, then chances are you have an issue with the positioning of your cleats. Perhaps the toes are pointing out, or the feet are too far apart. On the outside of the knee, again, similarly, the lateral part, it might also be the cleats going the other way, toes pointing in, or the feet are too close. And finally, back of the knee, the posterior part, it might be that your saddle is too high or too far back. So those are some of the things to look into. You can make adjustments at home, see if that helps. And of course, bike fitting is always a good idea.
Right.
And on that, make sure some of it can be, what Ted said, talking about doing the big gear stuff. If you're throwing your body left and right and you're making your legs move instead of in a circle, but some weird rhythm because you're throwing your body left and right and your knees are going in and out, that's going to cause issues too, because you're torquing on the joints in a way they're not meant to be used.
And you can go back to last week's Coach's Corner and listen for balancing, the balance or asymmetry on the pedals left and right as well. We talked about that, which can be related to this. And then one last thing I wanted to bring in is low back pain, which humanity seems to suffer from low back pain, regardless of whether you're a rider or not. It just seems to be the modern day illness. Of course, many causes here. It can be muscle strain or spasm. It can be arthritis, or meaning the wear and tear, degenerative arthritis, or it can be a bulge or herniation of discs, all sorts of different reasons. And again, your doctor should be helping you with this. In terms of what you can do, a lot of it can be helped with, the pain can be managed with core strength. And when we talk about core strength, we're talking about muscles from the neck all the way down to the top of your hips. So the core is not just your abs. The core is not just the lateral side of your body. The back is not just that low back. It's everything. So good workouts that will strengthen your core all the way, from the neck down, will help you stabilize your core. We have, a lot of them are in the 15-minute core workout, but there are many more that can be done. Planks are great. Crunches, hard, because that can, not everybody can do those, that can actually feel the back hurts. But anyway, that's some of the points there for back pain.
Definitely excellent tips there. I think the core of all this, if we got pun intended, is making sure that you have a strong core and that you have the strength to support the sport and the goals that you have throughout the year. So,
one last word here on NSAIDs, non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs. Keep in mind that a lot of people like to take those. Keep in mind that those interfere with recovery and adaptation.
Yeah, it is super important. We've always, a lot of times you'll hear about people taking these during rides. And from a medical perspective, this is definitely could be very, very worrisome as a practitioner. Just the reason why is that you are starting to close things down and essentially stop the healing process as you go on, even whether it's during the ride or after the ride. And so that process is actually important for your body in order to adapt and to grow. And in fact, if you are having pain, instead of masking the pain, obviously in the short term, you want to figure out for the long term what the cause is, and not just treating the symptoms, but the cause is important. So finding if it's that bike fit, if it's out of your comfort level that you've trained in, those things are important.
We also have a good topic in the forum about reducing inflammation without the use of drugs. Some of the things that people have used.
Yeah.
And I come from a background here of, in the Army, they hand out 800 milligram Motrin like candy. In fact, we call it Ranger candy.
Ranger candy.
Because it's a matter of sometimes you just have to get through whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
And so there's a need for that. And when we talk about for athletes, again, we're not professional athletes, so we shouldn't be having to mask and manage pain to get through an event, routinely and consistently. So if you do, if you have a little bit of a soreness, right, as you're coming up, okay, maybe. But the way I try to make sure anyone I work with, the only time you should be doing an NSAID program, in my opinion, again, I'm not a doctor, is if you have to reduce some inflammation quickly to allow something to heal, to increase blood flow. Other than that, if you're having to take Motrin or Tylenol or Advil or ibuprofen or whatever just to work out, come on, that's ridiculous.
Right.
You need to figure out what's causing that and resolve the issue. Otherwise, then it goes back to the treating a runny nose versus treating the pneumonia.
Yeah, exactly. Was there anything else on those topics there, Tia, that we missed? I think it looks like we hit all our big points. No, that was definitely a great roundup. All right, and for those of you that are looking to or trying to figure out how to add runs to your cycling program here, Ian has got some insight here for us.
Yeah, so we had a couple questions in the lab about where you add your runs. And a lot of this is going to depend on what's your goal. Is your goal just you like to run because you like to run? Then you can mix it up a little bit. If you have a goal race, like we have one person in the lab who's got a 10K coming up and they're looking at where they should add their runs with the bikes. So at this point, if you determine that your running event is your key event or your A event, vice what you're doing on the bike, you're going to want to put that key running workout first, because you want to do it with the freshest legs possible. And then you can do your key bike workout with a little separation from there, and then your secondary run workout, your secondary bike workout, and so forth. The important part of this is understanding what you're really trying to get at. If you're going for a triathlon, then it gets a little dicier. You just have to mix and match which week is going to be your key event. And I try to do that where I'll have 1 week or for 2 weeks straight, I'll have my cycling key workouts or my first workouts that are hard. And then the next 2 weeks, it's going to be my bike work or my run workouts. I can intermix swim in there because it's different. It's different muscle groups. But you definitely need to make sure that you're putting what the goal is and you're defining where that first hard key workout is, because that first key workout is the one that's going to get the most. You're going to get the most out of because you're freshest, unless you're not taking any days off. You also want to make sure there's separation between your key workouts. So, for example, I may do a key run workout on Monday. My Tuesday might be an easy bike. My Wednesday may be easy run or a swim or something like that. And then Thursday will be my key bike. So I'm not putting my key workouts back to back because I'm trying to let my body recover so I can get the most out of each of those workouts. So don't put my 8x800 meter run and then the next day try and do your FTP test on the bike or do something like that. You're just not going to be recovered enough. So you need to try and balance this out, and we can help you. We help you with that in the lab, is making sure that you're allowing your body to recover. So when you're at the key workouts, you're getting the benefit of the key workout. The middle workouts are where you maybe be able to back off a little bit, or it's just not as intense of a workout. Same when we go with volume. So if you're running long distance with biking long distance, like if you're training for a 70.3 or you're training for a full or you're just training for long stuff in general, a lot of times we're forced to do a Saturday and a Sunday because of our work schedule. My best season of training was when I could do my long run on a Tuesday and my long ride on a Saturday. And I could split them up, and it was fantastic because I wasn't shredded on Sunday. A lot of times until I really, really built up the volume, I would do that long ride on Saturday and my long ride on Sunday. And then I would spend Sunday afternoon on the couch. And then Monday I would drag my butt out of bed and have a really crappy swim. And I'd start the week horribly. And I just suffered through it. And I was starting my run on tired legs. So I never really had a good long run. I was just tired when I started. So I just taught myself to run tired. And that's not necessarily the most efficient and effective way to do it. So try to separate the back-to-back volume if possible. I get it, life, work, all that jazz. We may not be able to do it, but when you can, you're going to see much, much better return on investment for separating those big volume workouts. And then lastly, when we're throwing in speed work in our workouts, you got to think of it the same way as we're doing like the really hard, high intensity VO2 or climbing type workouts, because that's speed work, especially those of us who are not in the 19 to 24-year-old age group. Our bodies take more to recover from that, and it really can take quite a bit out of us. So if you're going to do the speed work, you've got to then make sure you're putting the fluids in, you're getting the rest, you're getting off your feet, and you're separating the next day's workout. The next day's workout is not a hard, high intensity workout. You can do it once or twice, but when you start coming up with hamstring issues, back issues, knee issues because of overuse, you'll know why.
Very important point.
Super. All right. So let's slide on over to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add one thing here real quick, Jason, because I raced last weekend, and I want to go over something real quick because it's something I've been harping on with the triathletes, and I think what we've been doing in the endurance lab has been very beneficial to what I experienced. Because the race I did, it was not supposed to be draft legal, but it became draft legal by default.
Oh wow.
Right, which is not cool when you're on a tri bike, but whatever. It worked out. Because I had a really crappy swim. I caught up to a whole bunch of people right away on the bike, and I motored right past them because I was doing my nice, 12:53 effort type thing, hammering by them. And all of a sudden I had noticed a movement off my back right shoulder. And I realized I had a train of 7 people behind me. They all grouped up and then chased me down because it was 7-on-1 on a flat into the wind. So what I ended up doing in this race, because I couldn't just get rid of them. And, with all the work we've done, I tried, trust me, I put on a few big attacks, and they just had numbers. So after the second attack, I realized I'm not getting away from them. They're going to keep chasing me down. Fine. And so I kept going to the back. And then every time I felt the pace drop off, I was getting to recover on the back. And then I would go to the front and surge. And I would basically do a VO2 effort for 3 minutes. But I would do like the 5-minute VO2 effort pace. So I was probably pushing about 105 to 110% FTP for 3 minutes. And I would usually go out hard though, just like we did on one of our last big workouts, where I'd go a minute above that. I'd get a gap, make them chase me. And then I would settle down at that 105% FTP, drill the pace. And then when I felt like, okay, I made them work hard, I'd swing off the front, move all the way to the back, recover. And I just did it again and again and again. And it blew them up because they had not been able to do that. And by the end of the bike, we were down. So we got to the maximum of about 12 riders as we passed some lap traffic and caught some other people in front of us. By the end of the bike, we were down to 4 with one dude straggling off the back. And so as soon as we get through transition, get out on the run, their legs were shredded. I got off and ran real fast. I got off and did my first mile in 5:55. Wow. And ended up putting 2 minutes into the next closest guy on 5K.
Oh,
So yeah, so for about 40 seconds a mile faster. And it was all of that was because a lot of what we've worked on in the endurance lab, it was that I was recovering at the floor of my sweet spot.
Right.
mhm.
A little bit less, depending on what they were doing, but it was a lot of floor sweet spot coverage. And then I would just go back and hammer it and then and they couldn't recover at sweet spot. And I was yelling at them to go faster the whole time.
Love it. That's
So
great.
yeah, and so it was A, tactics, but B, it was also that a lot of that work that we've been doing really paid off in
Yeah.
this kind of event that I wasn't planning on it. And I hadn't been training specifically for that, but I've been doing our workouts that at the end paid off.
Absolutely. All right, let's just take a peek here on the horizon. Taya, what do we got coming up on our 8th and final week here of the Performance Lab?
Time flies.
Yeah.
So we're going to be coming into the last week is going to be a tough one, as it always is. And the week will get harder as the workouts go on. So we're going to start with an over under. Those are 8-minute blocks. The overs are at 115% of FTP. The unders are at, the high end of tempo. And then we're going to do a progressive VO2 workout. That one is going to be 1 minute on and off for 2 blocks. And then we have 2 ramps at the end, really designed to push you to give your all and drain the legs. Then we have the Endurance Lab 613 threshold workout. That workout is very solid, very important for developing your threshold, but it is a hard workout. And because it comes in after 2 other workouts that we do earlier in the week, it makes it that much harder. But that's by design. It is really meant to have you a little bit fatigued, trying to hold on to 105% of FTP for those blocks. And then we close the week with the outdoor ride simulation, spending the most amount of time in tempo that we have. As if you look at your schedule and your rides from week 1 to week 8, we have been progressively increasing the time that you spend at tempo on these Sunday rides.
Yeah, definitely a challenging week headed up. One reminder for those that are on the forum is to head over to the Endurance Lab forum and to check out, even if you are just a listener here to the podcast, there are open topics as well that include nutrition, kind of training and that sort of thing. So definitely check that out. And for those riders for the 8th week, definitely looking forward to that. And of course, the question becomes what happens after the 8th week? So the plan becomes that we do have 1 week off in between for riders, but we do have the Power Lab, which is going to be starting May 28th. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information on that now. Essentially, it's going to be an 8-week targeted training starting at that date that I said, which was the 28th of May. And it's designed to prepare athletes to participate in all different types of events, all the different things that we're talking about today. Racing during the outdoor season with an emphasis on the intensity at threshold and a bit more at VO2 max, and still, of course, not losing the side of aerobic endurance and muscular force. A lot of times this ends up translating into workouts that are combining multiple abilities, like we've had kind of the layers in the Endurance Lab. We will be continuing that so an athlete can be prepared for many demands of all these types of events, terrain changes, winding conditions, surges like Ian was talking about putting down during his races, and accelerations and much, much more. And for those athletes that are training indoors exclusively during this period, you'll also benefit from all these skills that are provided in the lab. And of course, a lot of these workouts can be taken outdoors, whether you take them out on a Garmin or write them all down your leg like Taya likes to do. So one last quick roundup is that the Power Lab will include 8 weeks of a training plan of custom bike works. Bike files are compatible with Zwift and Training Peaks, as well as the strength workouts that we've had week after week, exclusive forum and direct access to certified cycling and triathlon coaches, sports nutrition experts, mental skills coach, and of course, a weekly educational presentation in the form of the Coach's Corner here. And as far as tips and activities you can do off the bike that can help you perform on the bike. All right, from the coaches here, anything else going on? Anything else we need to bring up here before we go?
So
Ian, Taylor?
we have many athletes who are in their third, fourth lab, and they want to get more feedback on their progress and how they're doing, to have one of the coaches look at their files weekly and provide that specific feedback. So we've had some people do that, and they're finding it very beneficial. So just to let you know, that's an option for you if you want to have that individualized feedback on what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think more and more writers, as they do more labs and want to know if they are progressing, a lot of times it's tough to kind of find the thing through the weeds. I guess I'm trying to get that saying right, but just to try to find out exactly what they should be looking at, and that's something that we can help you with. Kind of give you a big picture look at the things that you should be focusing on. So we do have that available. Check that out at endurancelab.fit, and you can sign up for that, and we can get you assigned to one of the coaches here. Anything else from your side, Ian?
Nope, I think we're all good.
Sounds good. All right, from us, thank you for joining us today here in the Coach's Corner. If it's your first time listening and would like to hear more content from the Endurance Lab, head to your favorite podcast app and search the Endurance Lab, or head to YouTube and search the same and click subscribe. For more information on when the next lab is going to be, head on over to endurancelab.fit, where you can learn to join us to train smart, learn more, and get results. We'll see everybody next week.